trust that knowing if you are drawn into this space, then you're meant to be here. And I think so often we're worried about the risk. What if it doesn't work? What if it isn't for me? What if? And what I think is a more powerful lens to look through, or at least as valuable, is what is the opportunity loss? What are you missing out on, and the opportunity cost?
Excited to have Cassandra here for so many reasons. She is a very brilliant mind. She's in her second year inside of Next Level Authority, but she has been in this community for quite some time. And we'll talk about how she made her way through the community in just a bit. But there has been a conversation that's been coming up because of the economy. And now we have this bank that has been taken over by the FDIC. And there's just a lot of uncertainty. Like there's a lot of remnants of, or people are now going, oh my gosh, is this before when all the banks went out of business? What's going to happen? And I'm actually planning on having a conversation with a couple of my friends, with you guys, about banking and how all of that works, because I think as a business owners, we need to have an understanding and be in position so that you don't get caught with that. But the biggest conversation that's happening around this, I see, is with the CEOs of company, that's you and me, talking about lowering their rates, talking about coming up with programs that are smaller because the economy is going to be bad and people aren't going to have money, and this is how you're going to stay alive. And what I want to encourage you and let you know is that economic downturns is where the opportunity actually lies. And it is during those times that the most millionaires are made, that historically millionaires and billionaires are created during economic downturns. And it happens for those whose focus is in the correct place. And Cassandra and I were talking about this a little bit, and we're going to circle back around to this conversation, but you get to choose where you plug in. You get to choose if you're going to plug into this economic paradigm of, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, Chicken Little, I got to react to all of this. Or if you're going to put your CEO hat on and plug into the paradigm of people who understand there is opportunity here. It's not just about the downturn, but what decision should you be making? We have been watching this unfold for quite some time. People were giggling when large companies were laying people off. Other people were upset when large companies were laying people off. And here's what I want you to understand as a CEO of your company and as a business owner: it is not your job. You're not in business to employ people. You are in business to create money. You're in business to make money. You're in business to make an impact. And so when these companies are recognizing that they can lower their cash flow there on a monthly basis and still maintain the same quality of service by doing it more efficiently, they made the cuts necessary. And we were looking at this a year and 2 years ago with all of this happening. So I want you to keep that in the forefront of your mind. First and foremost, you are a CEO. Yes, you are making an impact in the world and you are changing people's lives and all of those things, but you need to know how to be a CEO. You need to be surrounded by people that will allow you to be able to think at a higher level, as opposed to be thinking with the masses of people. There's a reason why there's a top 2%, right? Or the top 6% in business who are doing $1 million. There's a reason why there's the top 50%, 25% who are able to 25% who are able to cross 6 figures in their business. And then there's the rest, because the rest are in groupthink. They're reacting to situations. And so I want to encourage you to be different. We're going to jump into this conversation with Cassandra because there's a lot of differences that we want to talk about that you may find yourself in. And then we want to talk about how to position yourself so that in this economy, you aren't lowering your rates, but you are shoring up your value and your positioning with your ideal clients and being able to still collect $30,000 paid in full from clients, $50,000, $100,000, instead of thinking you have to find these massive amounts of people who are willing to pay you $500 so that you can survive. So that's the conversation we're going to have today. In order for you to be able to do any of the things that we talk about, there's 2 things that I believe that you absolutely need. There's 3. The first one is the knowing and the belief that you can absolutely do it. The second 2 are more practical. You need to be inside of community with people who think like this, who are accomplishing these types of results. And you need to have an offer that can help you to create the level of business that you desire. So there's a link above this video for an offer assessment where we look at your offer, look at where you are, and then see if you have the type of offer right now that's going to get you to the goals that you want to accomplish. And also to look at what you need to change in that offer, where as it relates to where it is in your business model and how you deliver it so that it does support you, the lifestyle you desire to live, and the money that you desire to make, and the legacy that you desire to leave. So if you just click the button above, you can book a 15-minute level up session with us to be able to do that with you. And if when we're talking to you, we feel like we can support you in getting to that next journey, we'll invite you into our community. We'll give you the options of what's available so that you can begin to learn from us, so that you can begin to plug in and begin to grow your business to the next level. Enough about all of that. Cassandra, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
If you could just take a moment and just introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are, let's start there.
Yeah, so I am Cassandra, and I am a business fairy. And what I mean by that is I come in and use my magical touch to be able to uncover what is not working inside someone's business. Like, what are those unseen gaps or untapped potential or opportunities, and really be able to reveal those, or be able to have my magical touch on those felt pains so that people can really, especially socially conscious businesses, that's who my heart is like drawn to serve, really be able to create the level of profit and impact they desire. So that's who I be. That's what I do.
I love it. We were talking earlier. I didn't tell Cassandra what picture I was going to use, and I used on my personal page, and probably changed the one inside of the group too. I used the picture of her in her tiger onesie because I believe that sums up who you are in the world and just what I've seen you unleash and unveil of yourself business-wise. That's a part of who you've always been, but business-wise, it was a little bit hidden in the background. And so I want to talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about your journey through this community and where you are now, like how you found me, where you were when you found me, but also this journey of unleashing Cassandra, the unicorn.
Yeah. Yeah. The fairy. And I think that, though I have been called a unicorn before too. So yeah, my journey. So talk about my past community. I discovered you because I was inside another community. I was in the lowest level offer when you were in the highest level. And I know a lot of people have spent a lot of years in a mentorship world. That was really my first journey into it. And I always say that I am so grateful that I did get a lot out of that program, but the most valuable thing I got out of it was discovering you. And the person who helped bring me into that program just knew that there was going to be some kind of connection and right fit. And so she encouraged me to keep an eye on you and pay attention to what you were doing, because she said we had a lot in common, even though like on the surface, she was like, there are a lot of differences. There's so much that you have in common, and just keep an eye on what Shameca's doing. And so I borrowed her belief in you and kept an eye. And I think that the first thing I did with you officially was the crash course that you do at the end of the year. I was about halfway through my other program. Had not quite launched my second business yet, which was why I was in that program in the first place, was getting that business ready to launch, and decided to jump into sales school. And I loved it. And I knew that I wanted to learn from you. I knew that you were my next right person. It was just one of those like times that I trusted my intuition. And I think other people on the outside were like, are you crazy? You just spent thousands of dollars on this program. You're going to invest in this. I'm like, listen, like I know what I'm doing. It's going to be great. Though there was that little voice in my head going, I hope I'm right. Yeah, I got into sales school. And I knew probably almost immediately when I joined sales school that I was going to choose to join Next Level Authority. And I knew that even though that's an evergreen program, I knew that most people were in the enrollment season for that tends to be in November. So I thought, okay, if I feel the way that I do about Shameca right now, and my business is doing as well as I planned for it to, I already knew. So I joined sales school knowing that the next step for me was NLA. And that was a fun journey to have that knowing, percolating that whole first year of being in your community. And then knowing, because I'm a planner, I was like, okay, July hit. And that year that I joined NLA, I also got married and bought a condo for the first time. And so it was a lot of big decisions and big spending, all like rapid fire. And so I was like, I need to speak to my partner about this big investment. I already told him like in January of that year, listen, as long as things are going well, next level authority, and this is what the investment looks like. But I knew I needed to start seeding that like over the summer so that by November it was ready to go. And I showed up at Game On Live in November, like I knew I was ready. And so that's when I jumped into that program. And from there, I was hungry for everything. And so I was like, get me into Play Big. So I did the first round of Play Big that first season. And yeah, and then like you said, I'm in my second year. And part of the reason I stayed for a second year is a lot of what you were already saying, like that proximity, being in community with people who are thinking the same way, valuing the same things, and had space for me to be in my fullness. And I think that's probably one of the most valuable things too. Nice. And I know that you say you're a leader of leaders, you're a leader of giants, you wake sleeping giants. Like I have all of it in me, grab their name. And having you see me as a giant meant so much. As it was one of those I always knew. And it was a weird like dichotomy might be I'm not quite sure if that's the word I want, but we'll go with it until we realize we need a different word. But it was weird to be on the outside of your community and have lots of people see me as strong and confident and powerful, and then show up inside of your containers and the duality of being seen that way, but also seeing how small I was playing. And that's what other people would see. And I'm like, oh, there is space for me here. And I think I heard you say recently that people in your containers, not everybody can lead them. And that resonated a lot with me when I heard you say that recently, because I am really picky about who I trust to lead me. And time over time, I'm just so grateful for having space and your mentorship. So that might have been longer than you intended for me to
It's
go
okay.
on my journey, but there you go.
Okay, beautiful. So we're going to talk about results, but you're talking about having this space of belonging. I always talk about, I lead leaders. And I think people are like, yeah, I'm a leader. I'm like, no, I don't think they really understand. There is this knowing, like the type of people that I lead, there's a few things about them, but that they are usually oddballs out. They're anomalies in their world in all kinds of ways. They're consummate overachievers. They're high achieving, overachieving, high achievers. And they are very driven. And that drivenness can show up in different ways. And they're not all like me. Right. So there are some who are quiet and introverted, but they have this quiet power. I like to liken power to water. Water can be powerful out of a pressure hose, and it can be as powerful as the trickle of the river that carved out the Grand Canyon over a millennia. And so there are these essences when it comes to power that doesn't always mimic and look like me. And so I want to talk about what that has looked like for you, because people will often come to me. So I get a couple of questions in my inbox when people are looking to hire me. One of the questions is, will this work for me? I'm not an extrovert. Will this work for me? I am not this or that. And lately I've been getting a lot of, I am not neurotypical. Does your teaching style work for me? And so before you answer your question, I'm going to say this to everybody listening. Neither am I. So I'm not neurotypical either. So I always giggle when people send me that question, because I'm like, I also have to deliver in a way that supports me so that I can support people. And what I empower my clients to do, which can annoy some people, I'm like, the choice is yours. You get to choose what this looks like for you. I empower you to take what I'm teaching and make it your own, make it work for you. And so I want you to speak into what that's been like for you to be able to empower yourself in that way and to show up in this community and figure it all out.
Yeah, I think that when I was building my first business, at that point, I was not aware of my diagnosis, and I'm ADHD, and I received that diagnosis a few years ago. I always knew I was different, and I had been trying on different diagnoses over the years, being like, is it this? And nothing quite felt right. And then I had, along my journey, that discovery and aha, and then formally got a diagnosis a few years ago. But I say all of that to circle back and say, when I was building my first business, I was very concerned about having it look a certain way and show up a certain way. And I think that was because I had also learned a lot of masking techniques and knew, so I thought, how I needed to show up and be accepted and taken seriously. And so I had done a really good job at learning how to dance and sing and be like, there's nothing to see behind the curtain. And so recognizing that, like, I just always cared very much about that polish. And I think that's really how I showed up in your world originally, is like being like, okay, I have to have it all pulled together. I have to, because I don't want people to see my chaos. I don't want people to know. People aren't going to take me seriously. And so I think that recognizing that I had space for that duality of my power and my expertise and my certainty and the messy unknown. And hearing you say that, giving me permission for that, because apparently I needed permission, I don't know. And also the community supporting me in that way. I started to trust myself more, to be like, show up the way I needed to, teach the way that I wanted to, support clients the way I desired, and recognizing that some of the things I had seen as strengths were double edged. It wasn't that they didn't serve me, but that it was time to let go of some of that, and or recognizing that though it served me in some ways, it held me back in others. And so that's been some of that shedding process that I've been going through, I think, and some of the unstuckness, or getting unstuck, so to speak, that I've been going through in NLA and in your community.
Yeah, I think it's just a powerful revelation when you can really take ownership, or like take in the knowing that there isn't one way to build a successful business, and that your way, however you desire it to be or need it to be for you, can be ultra successful. And it's just been beautiful watching you create what you have created. The more that you've stepped into yourself, the more that you've been willing to wear the tiger onesie and to dye your hair and to do all the things you want to do, not for any other reason, but because it brings you joy. And I see the more that you do that, the more that you allow this duality of the messy unknown to be seen, as well as the side of you that is just brilliant and knows things, to be present both at the same time, that your money is growing. And I think people are too busy tap dancing for the public and putting up that facade of, I've got to have it all together, I am the successful person, to even allow themselves to live in the resonant frequency of who they be enough to call in all that they desire.
Yeah. It makes me think of, like, when you talk about people's representatives showing up. And I think that my representative showed up, and I owned that. I think that's one of the things that I am grateful for to myself, that even though I had a lot that I was working through, I was willing. And I think that that's why I found the level of growth that I found here, to be vulnerable, to show up and say, help me. This is where I'm at. This is the support I need. And even though it was uncomfortable for me, like, asking for that support. And then I think that what really helped break things open for me is borrowing other people's beliefs in me first. I was like, there was a story in my head for a while, that both you and other people were never going to take my business seriously because you'd seen the messy parts, or that you weren't going to value what I did, or you wouldn't see the value in what I did. And then people would just not respond that way to me. You didn't respond that way to me. You were always lifting me up in a really authentic way. I think that's the other thing I can't stand in mentorship and coaching, is the cheerleader that is all surface. And I want to be genuinely supported and challenged simultaneously. I think that that's really been what has made such a difference in my journey too.
I love that. It's funny because, like, this is my natural disposition, which is why I decided to bring pom-poms into my brand, because I am very silly, but I'm also very powerful. And so for me, that's a part of myself that I would hide a lot. Just want people to see, like, the serious businesswoman. And then finally, I had to let that go for myself. And I think it allows me, I always tell clients that I only see the powerful version of you. It doesn't matter what you're going through. I will tell them like a baby giant is still a giant, right? A giant in distress is still a giant. It doesn't change the nature of who you are. So while there may be things that we are working through for your next level, it doesn't change the core of who you be. And that's how I approach you. I'm always going to approach you at the level of the giant that I see beyond what's present in the moment. And I think that supports so much because most people think they have to pretend to be the next level giant. And in that pretending, are missing so many opportunities for growth and for celebrating who they've become up until now, up until this moment.
Yeah, and I think that recognizing too that it's not linear. And I think that's something I've had to accept too, that the growth, we're not only is it not linear, but we're growing, different parts of us are growing at different rates and speeds. And I think that recognizing that part of what I have gained over this time too is figuring out how to deal with the emotion that comes up with it and how that was some of what was getting me stuck. And I mentioned like how, a few minutes ago about the representative and how that would show up for me a lot. And recently I've gotten a lot of like very lovely compliments about how genuine and how people like on my lives feel like I'm talking to just them. And I'm like, wow, if you had seen me years ago. But I say that to also say it doesn't mean like my representative doesn't show up. It's shown up in this conversation. When you asked me to introduce myself, I had that moment. I felt it and I was like, oh, hi, representative. How would you?
Yeah,
But I felt it even on with conversation. And so recognizing that it's that duality that you're working through too.
I love it. So let's talk about some results. Let's talk about some things. So we put a comment up here that Cassandra's been experienced $34,000 paid in full clients and all of those things. And I think that's important right now. And I want to celebrate you for that. So I'm going to get my pom pom out in just a second. We are going to celebrate, but I also want you to talk about what some of these results have been because you even have some more backstory to that. There's a lot of talk right now in this current economy. Like people don't have money and people come to me all the time and they're like, I need to find a new audience. I need to find the audience of people with money. And I'm like, it's not really about that. It's really about positioning yourself in a way that people understand your value and being able to articulate that so well that they're willing to invest and pay a premium to experience that transformation that they're seeking. So I want to celebrate you for this huge, like coming home a moment to yourself. And with that, all the revenue that you've been welcoming in. So first off, let's celebrate Cassandra for all the things she's doing. I'm super proud of you because I know the work that has been required for you to get to the point that you are at today. And so if you can just share like what have been some of your results that you've been experiencing?
Yeah. In the last 4 months, I have closed $85,000 in sales, 65,000 of that already cash collected. So that's huge.
Say
Yeah.
that again. I want people to understand. How much is
85,000 in sales, 65 of that cash collected. So that's really exciting too, is that I don't have to live in that like fear or worry of, yes, that sale has closed, but what if the money doesn't come? Like it is already there. And I think that also some of the recent wins too is just being able to move through decisions of what to offer and how to offer it more quickly and trusting my intuition. That sale that I closed at the end of October, that was like 34,500. That was a pay in full. And an absolute dream client too. That's the best part of it. Not only was it my biggest like painful to date, but also with somebody who I was just over the moon working to work with. And then it's continued to pan out. Like this is a long-term contract and they just continue to be everything I desire them to be and more. And I saw an opportunity where they were needing some support beyond the scope of what we originally decided to do. And I just decided to quickly make an offer to say, I see this thing. I think this is what you need and I can do it. Do you want it? And they were so relieved that I asked, that I saw it, that I made the offer, that it was just one of the easiest yeses I ever had. And so that moved that contract into that one client just from October to today. I guess it was like a few weeks ago that we did that, 52,000. And so it feels really good. And I think, yeah, that's been some of my recent wins. Oh, and today I just collected another 500. Thank you. And that was really for me going, trusting your mentorship and going, oh, this is what I am at capacity for my highest level services. But I desire to serve more. And I also don't want to stop the flow into my business. So what do I do? And you're like, you're not at capacity. It's just capacity at this level. What else do you got? And I was like, oh, I got this, and this. And so I just went out and did. And then I made an offer that I'd never made before and closed into that for the first time. And all of that in the last week, right? Yeah.
I love it. It's so beautiful. I want to, you just mentioned, okay, you did that because of my mentorship, right? So I want to talk about the power of mentorship in your life and in your business, because so many times people will jump in my inbox and they will be talking to me, and then they'll say something like, oh, I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to do this thing and I'll be back later. And I will tell you guys right now, if that's you ain't coming back. People don't come back later. But I think we don't realize like how much, for me, I'm always going to be, I was just sharing last week that I just jumped into a new mentorship container, and it like literally like this just blew the roof off everything just energetically. We haven't even really started yet. And so can you just speak to the power of mentorship for you in this journey of becoming?
Yeah, it's been such a cornerstone of knowing that I have somewhere to go, that I'm not an island. I don't have to be an island. I think that for the longest time in my first business, I didn't know a lot of other business owners, which sounds strange. And then I went through a Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business program, which is meant for people who are at a certain growth phase. It's not for new businesses, but it is a free program. It is application only. You do have to be selected, but it was free. So that was really kind of my first taste. Like, oh, I get to be friends and have community with business owners. Oh, I have this kind of advisory. And ever since then, that opened up the world of like, how much I desired. I already knew that I loved learning from other people. I'm just a lifelong learner. I have that Montessori mindset of we're all simultaneously teachers and learners at the same time.
Is that where I got that from, Montessori?
And so I think that for me, just recognizing that, I think that that I don't know that I agree. There's that old like proverb or phrase about that I don't think I agree with. The idea that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I think that the mentorship is what unlocks for me to be able to move quicker too. So I think that that proverb or saying is actually misleading. I think that we move faster and further together, not just further. So
I love that. I would agree. And for me, there's this line, there's a difference between education and training. What a lot of people get, and they think they're either being coached or mentored, but you're really just buying into courses that you can ask questions about. And then there is coaching. And for me, there's a line between coaching and mentorship, right? Coaching is pulling out of someone what they have inside of them. And it's a modality, and it's mostly done through the asking of questions. So you can't be upset with your coach who's not telling you exactly what to do, because that's not their job. It's a modality that's used, and questions is mostly what is used to get you to that place of self-awareness, the answers that you have already around you and inside of you. And then there's mentorship, which for me is we lock arms and we're side by side together doing this thing. I'm saying, hey, I've already done this, and I've done this with this many people, and you can go there if you want, but this is what it is likely going to lead to. And so now you're getting to skip the line, right? Because someone's already saying, we've had 1,000 people go through this process, and this is what this looks like. So do this instead. And you get to choose, right? And in that moment, as you're choosing for yourself, and either way that you choose, there's going to be a learning, right? there's going to be some level of growth, whether you learn from choosing the road that they said don't go down because the choice is yours, or you take the opposite road and it works out for you, then there's going to be a learning there and there's going to be growth either way. And that's how I see mentorship. And many people don't realize, like, maybe what you need is actually mentorship, but you've been going for training, right? Or coaching, right? And what if you had them all? Then it's game changing, right?
Yeah, I think that recognizing that you want to have a whole like range of ways that you're receiving support, or I shouldn't speak for other people. I know that's what supports me. Having coaching, having training, having mentorship, having therapy. Like I have a whole roster of people
Yeah.
that I get support from, and recognizing that they all serve their own purposes, but they're not the same thing. And I got excited when you were talking about kind of the modality of coaching, mentorship, and training. And I think that so often people show up and want to be told what to do, myself included. Sometimes I'm like, just what is the thing? How do I do the thing? And recognizing that like mentorship is, this has been my journey. This is what I have learned. And I also have seen it from mentoring hundreds, thousands of other people. However, what I like about mentorship, where coaching and training miss the mark, is that it stays in that place of empowerment of the person being mentored. Like it is still up to me and still about me matching what I know to be true for myself and what I'm able and willing to receive right now, because that's some of it too. And so it's not like training where it's do it this way, or coaching that, you tell me, what do you think? So I think that's what's really lovely about mentorship too.
I love that. That's funny when you ask that question about coaching. There's this famous coaching question. If you did know, what would the answer be? So that only works so far. I was thinking about this. I want to go back to the economy and your ability to get these clients to pay in full. There's a little element that you talked about going back to this client. And I remember a journey, this might have been almost 2 years ago or close to the beginning of your time being here, where scope creep was a big thing for you. If something did come up and a client needed it, you would just do it, as opposed to coming to them and saying, hey, there's this thing that I see and I can do it for you, but it's going to be $17,000 more. That wasn't the normal pattern. And so I want you to just talk about that piece, as well as what have you been able to do to anchor in your own value and positioning, your capacity to receive, all of those things that has allowed you to let people pay you at that level today.
Yeah. Wow. So many things are coming up for me. I'm trying to decide where to start. I think that one is some of the belief, like having to anchor in the belief that my work is that valuable. And while also living in the duality that we have to accept sometimes we're not ready to receive at that level, and giving grace to that, to say, okay, I know it's worth this, but I can't, for whatever reason, I've got some kind of mental or emotional block to charging that. And so how do I play in that messy middle? How do I go, okay, I know this and this is what I'm able to do right now. And so I think that's been part of this journey for me. Oh, I lost part of the question though. Help me out. What we're responding to
So getting yourself anchored into allowing yourself to be able to receive paid in full over $30,000, or paid in full period, because you're getting a lot of paid in full sales right now. And a lot of people just all automatically go to people need a payment plan, as well as not allowing scope creep to happen.
yeah. So I think that you said, I'm going to speak to the scope creep part first, because I think you said building our businesses to fit who we are and what we need. I have just learned that no matter what kind of guardrails I put into place, I just have such a heart and a generosity that there's going to be scope creep. So now what I do, rather than fighting against it so hard, I build for that I expect that to happen. I'm like, there are going to be things that I need and want to do that I cannot see in this moment. And so I'm going to build that into how I structure my offers. And that way I don't have to feel, oh, I'm being taken advantage of. Not that it's sometimes I'm making the choice to do that, or, oh, I have to beat myself up because it's happened. But also I think that part of it too is a willingness to go back and have those conversations and say, I want to help you, and this is what it would cost. And being comfortable at having that conversation about the scope creep as opposed to feeling like I just have to do. So that's part of it, is just building in some structure to allow some of that to happen. And then I think that anchoring in the ability to receive and get so much pay in full is a willingness to take a risk and stay playful at the same time. And I think that it's interesting because I think I'm going to interrupt myself. When I showed up in your world, I think that like I was taking things so seriously. And I wanted to be playful. There was that bubble underneath. And I was like, but I am playful. And you're like, you're taking it so serious. And so I think that you saw kind of how I was holding myself back. And when I allowed myself to, I think I really started to embody releasing the outcome. And that was really a huge anchoring point for me to go, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to say no. And recognizing that I could even hedge that a bit and saying, I frame things to say, this is what's possible. This is the way I love to serve you. I don't want you to feel like you have to accept all of that, but I want you to know what's possible. And I think that making offers from that place also gets them excited because oftentimes they don't see the possibility of the level of service that I could give them, and giving them room to pull back. And that's what anchored it in for me. That the one from October, I had not yet. I used to believe that the type of people that I wanted, it was hard to find them. I often work with social enterprises, nonprofits, people who have a lot of that built-in scarcity mindset or fear. And I knew that even if I was overcoming it, I was maybe going to be running into that. So I was like, I don't even know if they're out there. And then I just started taking action that got rid of the people who I did not want, and having to learn that there was some of that learning from doing started allowing me to get really more specific about who I was calling in. And then they just started showing up. I was like, oh, this one. And I think that being able to say, here's my offer, and this is what it would look like, and this is what it would look like paid in full, and hearing them say yes for the first to that level. Oh,
Yes.
it's just everything. I don't know. I don't have a word for it. It's this.
Magic.
What'd you say?
It's magic.
Yes, magic. Yes. Yeah. And so, yeah, does that answer your question? I think I kind of.
Yeah, I think it does, because it reminds me, I posted a question in the group, and it was very interesting looking at how people answer that question. The question was, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you trust that people will say yes to your offer when you make it? And what was funny is like not everyone, most people's answers were dependent on the type of person or the circumstances of the offer, as opposed to just saying, the reason why I trust is because I trust that the right person's going to say yes, and I'm not connected to the outcome. I've released the outcome. And that's the game that we're always talking about playing. It's like, what is the most fabulous offer that I could put out there that if they were to say yes, oh my gosh, my world would change.
And to piggyback that, like I created offers, like big offers, because I had some opportunities earlier on that people had asked for proposals, and I put them together, and I did let them be really robust. And then they didn't pan out. But they already they already existed. They are already created. And so when the right people came along, I went, oh, I've already created that. And so I got to appreciate that the opportunity to create the offer wasn't always necessarily how do I say, I was ready for that person. That allowed me to be ready, and I didn't have to get in the getting ready for them because I had already done that work. So those got to be two separate experiences so that I could best support people. And so I loved going, oh, that original one didn't show up in my world because they were meant to be a yes. They were in my world so that my creative juices could start flowing, and that I could create that so that it was already ready for the right person.
It's a beautiful perspective. I have 2 more questions for you, and then we're going to wrap up. I think the question that I want to ask you is, I want to talk about it's not really your experience in the program, but what did you love most about being in mentorship and being in the program, being inside of this community, and why has it works so well for you?
I hate having to pick just one thing. I think that two things come to mind. One is I understand how very important it is to unlock growth. It takes a lot of reflection time and a lot of assessment and what's working and what does that inform here. And having space to do that in community with other people who are desiring to create the levels that I desire, um, and not having to have shame about any of it, and really super powerful. And knowing that there is that rhythm for us to be looking at and examining that, like, facts over feelings just as a mantra. And I had felt like that before I was in your container, but two things. I did not have those words. So it was something in me. And the second part, B, is that I didn't always hold myself accountable to that. I was like, I love to make decisions based on facts, but then how much I was living and feeling. And so I love having space to have the accountability of always being reminded facts over feelings. So that's that part of it. And then I think the second part that I came up from you and that matters a lot is cultivating celebrating. Like, it's wild. Like, I am now known outside in the world as someone who celebrates a lot and intentionally celebrates. People know I'm going to have a laundry list of celebrations now, but I honed that. That wasn't how I showed up in your space before. I definitely was one of those, I have success amnesia, but this thing ahead, or I wasn't looking at. And I think that that's why those two things, the celebration and the assessment pieces, are actually one and they're together, is that I learned to look at my business differently and see my results in a more powerful way and take credit for that. And also recognize the ways to celebrate the ways I was getting support and celebrating others and being able to support others in celebration. Like, I have so much joy and other people's joy, and having space that's normalized. That's a huge reason why I stayed in NLA a second year. I was like, what will I do when I have a big win? Where will I go? That it's okay to celebrate unashamedly. Not only is it okay, it's expected.
Absolutely.
And
I love that. And you make me want to do this again because you're killing it, girl.
yeah.
You're so killing it. Okay, here's my last question for you, and then we're going to wrap up this call. It's been just a really powerful conversation. I just want to thank you for being willing to share your story and your success with us, because you could just keep it to yourself, but you're willing to share what this has been like for you. And my hope and my desire for those of you who are listening and watching, depending on where you're coming across this piece of content in this conversation, is that it lights a fire inside of you and ignites this notion of possibility, no matter where you are and no matter where you are in your journey and who you're being at this moment, that it's possible. And so with that said, I want to ask you this final question. Imagine that someone's listening and watching right now, and they are on the fence about stepping into this community, about whether or not I'm the right person to guide them, about booking a call to speak to our Level Up Squad to see if we have a space for them, and just about looking at our programs in general. What would you say to that person?
I would say trust that knowing. Like, if you are drawn into this space, then you're meant to be here. And I think that don't allow for, I think so often we're worried about the risk. What if it doesn't work? What if it isn't for me? What if? And what I think is a more powerful lens to look through, or at least as valuable, is what is the opportunity loss? What are you missing out on, and the opportunity cost? Because I think that so often when we wait, and you were saying it earlier about, I'm gonna go do this other thing and I'll be back. Statistically, we know you won't be. But be recognizing that this is in front of you right now for a reason. And there's always going to be a way to make it happen if it's what's meant for you. I think that realizing we were talking about before we got on the line, like the money part's always figure outable. And I think that what makes me sad is that people in the world generally still buy into the idea. I think we're starting to break this down, but like the only good debt is school debt and anything else we shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And people, oh, I can't take on debt to buy. And I'm not saying, I don't like those programs who are out there saying, sell your grandma's jewelry and rob all the money out of everywhere you've got it stashed. But I think that being smart and creative and getting plugged in where you can, rather than being like, well, I have to go do this over here before I can have this. Go, okay, this is what is in front of me. This is what I desire. How do I get there? As opposed to saying I can't yet.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. Just a quick invitation. There's a link above this video if you're watching on the video, or you can go to bit.ly/ready to play big. Yeah. bit.ly/ready to play big to book your 15-minute offer analysis if you want to just engage your team, and we'll do an assessment to see where you are. For those of you who know you are super, super ready, we have a couple of offers on the table right now at the time that we're recording this live for you to get into private mentorship and into community with us. And so if that is, you want to type level up in this video. If you're listening on the podcast, you can just message me either on IG or Facebook. Just DM me and say, Shameca, I'm ready and I want to just explore what this would look like. So those are your two options. For those of you who aren't quite sure where you are, we also have something coming up that's an offer intensive that's at a super low investment for you to look at your offers. So same thing, even when you message me about either one of those things, we will explore if that's the right place for you to start. Because clarity of offers is the biggest thing. And most people think your offers is like what you put into the thing. So you're like, I have a package. That's a package. Your offer is actually what you're offering. It's the language, it's the positioning. And most people don't teach that stuff. And so you're out here selling your sessions and your 6-week program and you're wondering why people aren't buying. It's because you're not meeting with the articulation of the value as they see it so that they're willing to invest. And so we want to walk you through that process. So those are the opportunities available to you. I've given you like 3 different things to do. Whatever resonates with you, you can type level up and someone from my team or myself will reach out to you. You can message me and then we'll just take it from there. And I'm with Cassandra. It's a trust your knower, right? This is a trust thing. I don't believe that opportunities at all show up. You wouldn't even know who I am or was or is. You wouldn't know who I is if this opportunity wasn't for you. Now, whether it's for now or for later, that's for you to decide. But I know that opportunities don't present themselves to me until I am ready. It is an indication for me that I'm ready because our brains are designed to keep all information that we do not need away from us. We can't see it if we try until the information is necessary and needed and required for what's next for us. So those are the invitations to you, Cassandra. Again, thank you. You are an incredible human. And I appreciate you being here, sharing your story, sharing your essence, and we celebrate you one last time because you're out here doing big things. And like I said before, I know the work that has been required for you to get here. And so I'm honored that we got a chance to have this conversation and that they get to witness it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, guys. Next week, we're going to have a conversation about the economy. I'm going to see if I can get my girlfriends on this call with me so we can talk about this banking situation and what to do as a CEO to prepare for what's coming, because I think it's a right now conversation that is needed to have. And so I'm going to bring some multi-millionaire business owners and badass CEO women into the conversation so we can talk about how we're thinking during this economic downturn so that you can glean from us and be a fly on the wall in our conversation. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for watching my show, my channel. Here's what I want you to do. If you really love what you've been listening to, I want you to subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment. No, really, leave a comment. like right now. I'm not gonna stop talking until we leave a comment. Seriously, leave a comment.